Hello, everyone. I'm your AAU basketball coordinator here at the AAU National Office. Welcome to our first episode of the Beyond Game podcast, where I'm privileged and blessed and honored to have our first guest on here, Mr. Larry Hughes. Mr. Hughes, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you having me on. And how are you doing?
Doing blessed. Can't complain, man. Like I said, first episode and blessed to have you on. And, before we get started, I always believe in, giving people their flowers and giving them, their props and stuff like that. So just before we get started, just want to go over some of your accomplishments to remind everybody, the type of great player you was and the reason why we have you out here in the first place. So just going over Mr. Hughes' accomplishments, played 14 years in the NBA. In 2005, he was all defensive team and also led the NBA in steals. And even going back to his time in college, he was National College Freshman of the Year, playing at University of St. Louis, was a McDonald's All-American and Mr. Basketball in Missouri in 1997. And like we mentioned before, 14 years in the NBA, where he had a career average of 14 points per game, 4 rebounds a game, 3 assists. And one of his best statistical seasons in 2004, 2005, a year I felt like he should have made the All-Star team, averaged 22 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. And 3 steals, that stands out to me because that shows that you're really playing defense. And again, that was in 2004 and 2005. So you can only imagine playing, being first team all defense in that type of era where you had great players. So that's this accomplishment shouldn't go unnoticed. So again, thank you for being on here. So when I say that, list all those accomplishments and you played 14 years in the NBA, what does that mean to you?
There's history within basketball. And, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Just coming up from a youngster, not really knowing where the game will take you, just really going out and to compete every time you're out on the court. So that's really what a lot of those marks mean to me, is that every time I was out on the court, I got a chance to play. I went for it. I wanted to compete. And that's when we're all said, when it's all said and done, we talk about the players that are retired. I think that's, not the first thing, but the second thing that we talk about is the competition. The other one is the camaraderie with being in the locker room. But man, you can't beat the competition, and winning awards and getting accolades. It's all about the competition. The awards things are great, the stats are great, but the beauty is within the competition.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like I said, anytime I'm blessed to talk to an NBA player, I always tell young people, he played 14 years in the NBA, and that's not by accident. People can always be like, man, how he get in the NBA? Like, how is he there? But 14 years in the NBA, and you weren't just someone on the roster. Like, you started and you were a contributor everywhere you played at. That's not by accident. I know that, took a lot of hard work and, just over the years and just being mentally tough and everything.
Yeah, it was. It was. I think, that 14 could have actually easily been 18 and 19, years in the NBA. And just like you said, I wanted to, during my time in the NBA, I wanted to contribute. I wanted to be a player that could get out there on the floor and affect the game and help, my team out and help any way I can to win a basketball game. So if you talk about 14 years, you start getting later in that career and, your roles and things of that nature change. So I was blessed with an opportunity to obviously do well for myself. So I didn't want to hang around and stick around. But those years that I was playing, I was very engaged, had a really good impact on how the teams played that I was on, winning and losing. So that's what I'm proud of, just being able to compete and have that presence within the NBA for, 14 years. That's a long time. We talk about basketball time to win and earn your job, year after year. I mean, that's really tough.
So I want to start back, in the beginning when you was a kid, when you was little Larry. So when did the passion and love for the game, start for you?
Early on, it was really about competition. Like it was schoolyard basketball. It wasn't organized. I didn't start playing organized basketball until I was 12 years old. So I was experiencing, the pickup basketball, the 21 bucket basketball, on the blacktop. And that's where I, gained my love for the game. It had nothing to do with being on television and earning a bunch of money, playing in the NBA. It was about running after school to get to the court, or early Saturday morning, waking up and getting to the court. That's where my love came from, for the basketball game.
Okay. You mentioned, you played 12 years old at a young age. So when did you have this goal, I guess, or when did it come to you that, all right, I'm good and I want to play in the NBA, I want to play college basketball and then, make it to the NBA?
Never, not until it actually happened. Even, talking about college, I mean, I'm from St. Louis. I'm from downtown St. Louis. I'm from a space where we think about, life after just kind of that journey, but it's hard to plan it out. It's hard to talk about, getting into college and finding a college and obviously creating a career, within sport, or creating a career, after, growing up. So it's a different environment. So for me, it was just like I was chasing the competition. Like I had a neighborhood, we all played, we all ran around, we played basketball. And just, as I began to like the game, it was something that I was naturally good at. So that gave me an advantage to continue to work harder, or to want to work harder, because it was something that I was naturally good at. I could run, I had fluid movement. So those are the foundation of things that I could work on. So I never thought about going to college. I never thought about my dream college school. Growing up playing basketball. Now, when I got to high school, then all of those things became, options. So I would say around 15 or 16, I figured I had the ability to play basketball at a different level than what the guys around me were playing basketball. Was that high D1? Was that professional? That wasn't really in the thought process. I just kind of knew that I had something different than the other guys that I was playing with. And 16, I figured I could make it to college, right? And 16, 17, we started talking about, playing basketball at the highest level, and that was the NBA, playing professional basketball. And like you said, I went to St. Louis University and I did 1 year, so it all happened pretty quickly.
Here at the AAU national office, we have a bunch of AAU tournaments. When did you, when you were younger, start playing AAU basketball?
Right at the same time I played organized. So I was, like I said, I was playing schoolyard, from 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. My mom's like, hey, we got to get you from out of the schoolyard to, that street stuff is coming in. So she wanted to get me into a more controlled environment. So that pushed me into the gym inside the doors to play organized basketball. And that first year playing organized basketball was the first time I experienced AAU basketball. That was with the Mustangs, St. Louis Mustangs here in town, a local team. Got a chance to experience, what it was to play basketball inside of a gym, and then also play basketball outside of the city where I'm from.
Okay, so you mentioned traveling. Overall, can you just talk about some of your experiences playing AAU?
Great experiences. Again, man, when we talk about, just chasing the competition and understanding where I'm from in St. Louis, we're in the Midwest, and we talk about AAU basketball, you talk about travel basketball, you just get a chance to see people from the East Coast, the West Coast, down South. So that experience for me was the one, right? That's what I was looking for. I was looking for competition. I was looking to see how my skills, matched up with people around the country that was playing basketball. And AAU introduced me to that. So I was able to see, with AAU, just kind of the different talent the country had to offer.
That's a great experience, great story. So do you remember some of your favorite tournaments that you played in?
Yeah, I mean, we did, during our high school years, it's probably, Sachem, what is it, in Washington? There's a AAU tournament. I think it was 6th grade, 7th grade, which was really my first experience traveling, really far. And I think it was to Seattle. Can't remember exactly the city that we were in, but that allowed us to take a plane ride. And that was really the first time we've ever taken a plane ride. So that experience, in itself was something different, just to have that experience from taking buses and things of that nature to now, jumping on a plane. The other one I would say probably in my high school years was a tournament out in Vegas. And for us, it was like all of our teams went out to Vegas, and we had to stay in like a couple rooms. So that experience of just traveling around with guys that went to different high schools and being 4 and 5 to a room, like you learn different things about people, you have different conversations that you wouldn't necessarily have. So I think that experience too was one of the ones that I definitely remember, 2 on the bed, 4 in the bed and 2 on the floor is what we used to call it.
So your AAU coaches, do you remember some of the things they taught you on and off the court?
It taught us to be held accountable, to be respectful of people's time. And when we were growing up playing AAU ball, our coaches was the principal at the middle school, the janitor that was keeping the high school clean. So these were all guys that had other jobs that were giving their time back to us. So I think early on we learned that we respect their times because they have other jobs and things to do. So if we have practice at 6 o'clock, obviously you'd be at practice at 6 o'clock. So these are all things that I teach our kids today is really being accountable and holding not only yourself accountable, but your teammates.
That's great. And I know you mentioned, it was the first time you flew on a plane and great experiences getting to travel. Can you remember maybe some of the top players you played against in these tournaments as you traveled?
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, you got Ron Artest, you got Tony Harris in Memphis, you got Baron Davis in LA, man, Shane Battier up in Michigan. There's a number of guys, man, just coming up that these are all my peers. And a lot of these guys I talked to today, Deion Glover down in Atlanta, just got off with him just a couple minutes ago. But these are all the guys. I mean, some of those guys made it to the NBA and some of those guys didn't. But growing up, traveling around the country, meeting and playing against those guys, those names that I mentioned was definitely special.
Yeah, those are household names. If anybody doesn't know, those are guys that not only made it to the NBA, some of those guys are NBA championships, all-stars, all-NBA teams. So that's amazing that you got to, at AAU, play against them, and then future, now you played against them in the NBA as well.
Well, yeah, that's where it started. That's where it started. Now a lot of things get roped into the AAU brand. A lot of things are called AAU that are not necessarily associated with AAU. So it's a different sort of landscape now. But that's where it started. I mean, you didn't have all the shoe circuits and all of this, promoter and all of these things going on. It's like when you wanted good quality basketball to see who's the next person or who's the next team or who's the next people, it was through AAU basketball. And that's how we learned, and that's what we grew up on.
And I read that in 1997, your St. Louis Eagles team won the AAU National, that's our tournament, AAU National Championship. Can you just briefly explain that experience and what that was like?
It was special. I mean, we felt like we had the best group of young players that St. Louis had to offer. And on that team, I think we had 13 guys. I think 11 of those guys went very high D1. I think those other 2 guys went to play football, high D1. So we felt like we had the best that the city had to offer, and it was up to us to go out and represent where we're from. And that tournament was in Greensboro, North Carolina. I obviously had a bunch of guys that were on the East Coast that had names, that had followings. But that time was special to us because we can always go back and talk about that time. We have guys that are still local here. Obviously, the Brad Beal Elite team that used to be the Eagles is now Brad Beal Elite. So a lot of the players are still around. I believe that was our last, major championship that the program has won. So those things like that are history pushing. I was MVP of the tournament. My status rose from that. I met a bunch of good friends, Brendan Haywood. We joke and laugh today about, us beating them to make it to the finals. So those experiences, man, I can't give them back. And I cherish those experiences, especially when you talk about winning a national championship. It's equivalent to what these guys win in the Under Armour circuit or in the EYBL. That was equivalent to what we were winning, back then.
I've talked with NBA players before, and I'd be like, is there something you regret or something you wanted? And you would think it'd be make an all-star team or something like that. And someone said, man, I remember when I was playing in the AAU Nationals, man, and just for me and my homeboys to play for our city, we wanted to win that championship so bad. Or the ones that did win it, like yourself, say they still cherish it years after to this day. So that's amazing.
We chased that, man, from 6th grade, right? We from 6th grade on up until our junior, going into senior year of high school, we were chasing that national championship. And before that, the highest we finished, I think, was either 6 or 8. So, to finish that off, being our last AAU, our last summer deal, last AAU deal, you can't beat that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, like I said, we were talking about your AAU time. So you won a national championship, and then now we fast forward after that to high school. You was a high school All-American, and you decided to stay home and play college ball in St. Louis. How'd that decision come about?
I'm a hometown kid. Like I said, I never had the dreams and the aspirations of going off to college and having a dream school or having anything that I was really targeting at that time. So being from St. Louis, had great relationships with not only some of the staff that was at St. Louis University, but also the players. A lot of those guys were local guys. I would go down during my high school days and we would play pickup. So I'm a guy that's, when I'm comfortable, I can hoop. Like if when I'm comfortable, I know what's going on. That's when I really can get into my game. So for St. Louis University, I was comfortable. Coach Spoonhour was my coach. was a great guy. Like I said, obviously hometown guy, university, 10 minutes from where I grew up, 15 minutes from where I was going to high school at. So it was, it made a lot of sense, especially for me, and also having my family get a chance to watch me. My mom, my little brother was sick at the time. So that played a role into how far I was actually going to go away, to college or move away from the family, because I needed to be present and available to my mom and my brother. So that all those things, played a role in my decision to stay home, which, I mean, we see it now, even now today. I mean, there's obviously kids that go off and they explore, different parts of the country, but the majority of these guys, we talk about recruiting, and once it's all said and done, these guys are staying close to home. And that's really what it was for me, was to be close to home and allow people to see me continue to play.
You played 1 year at St. Louis, and then after your 1 year, you decided to enter your name in the draft. And, that's a great accomplishment, because back in the 90s, I know today that's pretty common for someone to play 1 year and go to college. But back then, that wasn't very common. Back then people were going to college 2-3 years, even maybe their senior year, to enter the draft, not only enter the draft, but help their chances to be a lottery pick. You enter your name in the draft after 1 year, not only did you a lottery pick, you was a top 10 pick, you was the 8th pick. And, just how that decision come by, and you felt confident that you was good enough?
Well, I didn't know that I was good enough. Again, all of these things kind of just happened. Wasn't really searching out, the college opportunity, even though I wanted to play and be good at basketball. And then from an NBA standpoint, I wasn't necessarily searching out, if I was able to play in the NBA. I was kind of going with the flow. So what happened was, I was at St. Louis University, and we had started playing and working out, and news was getting out that that there was something going on in St. Louis. They had a pretty good player. So for me, it was about people coming to me, reaching out, saying, "Hey, have you thought about, entering into the NBA draft?" And no, I haven't. I don't really know a lot about it. So what really pushed me over the edge is to have more conversation with somebody coming to me saying, "Hey, if you thought about going into the NBA draft, you would potentially be a top 10 pick." And that was pretty much it. Now I'm chasing, can I be a top 10 pick? So all of my energy and effort and, understanding is going, okay, can I compete in the NBA? Because if I can be a top 10 pick. So that information really weighed in on my decision to leave St. Louis University. Like I said, I was very comfortable there. 4 of my teammates from my AAU team, they actually were on St. Louis University's basketball team. So I was, comfortable in my surroundings. But yeah, I got information from the powers that be, whether it be scouts or agents, whoever, that I could be a top 10 pick. And that's really what sparked my interest to play in the NBA and to start thinking about making, those tough decisions.
I think we all can agree that it was a great decision, because, like I said, you went 8th and had a great career. And, not to go unnoticed, that was a great draft that had, yourself, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson. I believe Dirk Nowitzki was in that draft as well. So it was a pretty strong draft class. So.
Oh, it was very strong, very strong. And obviously to have a freshman, in that top 10, obviously Dirk being overseas, we were right around the same age. But, just to have that experience of guys that were playing at North Carolina with Antoine and Vince. You had a guy from Arizona, Mike Bibby. You had a guy from Kansas and Paul Pierce. Like, you had Tractor Trailer, who was from Michigan. So, like, I'm St. Louis University, and we're in Conference USA. So we're really matched up now against everybody in the draft. So I felt like, we had the opportunity to represent, St. Louis, on that level as well.
So moving forward, like I said, you've played 14 years and you're retired now. And I know you have your Larry Hughes Basketball Academy that you do back home. What's your advice on facing adversity? Because, basketball is fun and everything, but at one point, you're going to have challenges, whether it's, might be getting cut from your team, or you're not be getting playing time that you think you should get.
I think just using all the situations to help you mold, your thought process, because like you said, basketball is a game of adversity. Adversity is around every corner in life. So I think that, talking to the young people, you'll have to find your vice to fight through. You have to find your vice that's going to make you want to reach the next step. And for me, what I tell our kids in our academy is the amount of energy and effort that you give to a situation, the better you'll be. And you'll encounter adversity, every time you walk out of your house, there's something of an adverse manner that's going to either make you rethink what you're doing or challenge your thought process. So having that complete focus of having the energy and the effort to stay on the right path and do the right things, I think that goes a long way, especially with the young people, because now they want to see the results as opposed to you talking to them and telling them, what the right path is. So guys like myself that are getting back into the space of youth development and allowing our experiences to shape that process. Because again, social media wasn't huge when I was coming up, and even still, I just started social media 3, 4, 5 years ago because it wasn't built into my DNA. But for now, these kids now, all of this stuff is built into their DNA. But there are good examples out there for them to follow, and there's also bad examples for them to follow. So I would encourage them to have conversation, with other young people, also with adults, to understand what are good distractions, right? When I talk to my kids in the academy, we use the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule, if we're talking about, the actual work that we're putting in, 80% of that is our skill development. That's our right-hand layups. That's our jump shots. That's our pull-ups. That's our seeing the basketball court. That's our basketball IQ. And then there's that 20% of the distractions, the things that bring other people into your world, to bring, wanted or unwanted people into your space to see what you're doing. And that's that social media space of video clips and going out and showing, your personality off the court. So it's all a part of what these young people need to be successful and to brand themselves. But I would encourage them to watch somebody that's doing well with their social media. Obviously, you can go to the big name guys like a LeBron. Within the AU space, we talk about brand, but your branding is who you are. Your branding is who you want people to see you as, what you represent. So I think that it's important that they find proper brand ambassadors to help them with those distractions, because it's tough to navigate, especially with all of the young people that I see and all the distractions that they have. It's tough to navigate the space that they're in now, but there are great examples out there for these young people.
I want to go back into your playing career. Like I said, you played 14 years in the NBA and you played for different teams, but also during that time, for the most part, you've had good teammates. When you was with the Sixers, you played with Allen Iverson. When you was with the Golden State Warriors, you played with Gilbert Arenas, Jason Richardson, and then the Wizards, Gilbert Arenas again. You had Antoine Jamison, guys who's all-stars. And then you played with the Cleveland Cavaliers when you played with LeBron James and Zydrunas Ilgauskas. I mentioned that because my next question was the importance of being a good teammate and being unselfish. Like, yes, you was a great player as yourself, but you also had to share with others. It couldn't just be about you because you had other great players on your team. So can you just talk about the importance of being a good teammate?
Well, I've learned that. I've learned just from watching the history of the game of players before me, or just understanding that we're all different and we all come from different walks of life and we all have different triggers that, we have to respect and understand. So every time that I had was in a team or had a situation, I always understood who my teammates were. I understood, what their challenges were, understood like what bothered them, understood what they liked. And it's not, I didn't dig, 1,000 yards deep into what those things were, but I wanted to have an understanding. So when we talk about, I think you missed my teammate in Washington was the one and only Michael Jordan, but we always got to make sure that he's on the list. But these are all guys that when I talk about a collective, and this is on the court, off the court stuff that, my playing career led me into all the things being successful that I'm doing now, off the court. But I understand when you're on a team, there's roles that everyone plays. There's a necessary pecking order of operations that needs to be in place to make sure that things run smoothly. Not saying that this guy's better than me, but in this situation, in this scheme of things on this team, we need to make sure that this person is highlighted in this fashion, or make sure we carry for this person in this situation. So just really understanding what your team is. And I always operate in the collective, and I did that in my NBA days, but now also off the court. But what that means, on the court during my playing days, is that I just respected everyone's opinion and everyone's thought process. And in turn, they respected what I brought to the table. So I think it's, again, we talk about a two-way street. We talk about, being a good person, holding people accountable. If I can be held accountable, then I can hold my teammates accountable. And I think that goes a long way when we talk about having the names of the guys that I played with, like Allen Iverson, LeBron James, Gilbert Arenas. And I played with Gilbert twice, played with Antoine twice in Golden State and in Washington. But my relationships are solid with those guys because they knew who I was and they knew, what I was out there for, each and every day.
Got you. That's amazing. That's a great answer. Also, I wanted to talk about mental health as well. I know a lot of athletes are, especially now, which I love to see, are speaking out about mental health and the importance of it. Going back to, when you played, how was mental health for you, far as like just being able to make sure mentally you were in a good state?
When I was playing, you fought through any sort of challenges. It wasn't necessarily now how it is, the acknowledgement of, taking your me time, taking your break time to, to realign yourself with what's really important to you or, what really matters. When you're playing in the NBA, things get way off kilter as far as the traveling all the time, being away from your family, not being able to see, different moments that go on with your kids. So it's a wacky ride. And when I was playing, you didn't have those outlets to talk about or to take your time to, to re-engage with the things that are most important for you, so you're able to do your job to the highest of your ability. So I think mental health, now that we're talking about it, is in a great space because look, we would always say as athletes, like, we're human. And I think that us saying that we're human was kind of the message to everyone else, that we go through things and have mental challenges like the next person or the everyday person that will watch us on TV. So I think it's a very good thing now that we're able to talk about it, we're able to discuss it, and we're able to understand more about, the inside of what people go through, whether it be on the court issues or off the court issues. It's important that we get a chance to talk about those things now.
That's amazing. That's powerful. I definitely agree with you. So next, I want to go into our next segment of fun questions. I'm going to ask you some questions. Hopefully they don't catch you off guard, and, feel free to elaborate as much as possible on them. I think they're great questions, mainly pertaining to your career and, you as a person. So first question is, in your 14-year career, who was some of your favorite players to match up against? And what I mean is, they're coming up on the calendar. You're like, all right, I got to circle this date on my calendar because I know I got to bring my A game because they're going to bring their A game.
Yeah, early on, I mean, I did a lot of guys. GP, Gary Payton, I was one of those guys that was a trash talker guy. So I remember the first time playing him in a shortened season, coming into the league, him and Vernon Maxwell, they got me. I mean, they talked bad to me, thought I was a young snotty-nosed little kid out there running around, the way they were talking to me. So GP was always one that because I loved this game, I wanted to play defense just like him. He was always one that I circled on the calendar, not only because I wore his shoes in college, but once I got to the NBA, he just talked crazy bad to me. So he was always, on my calendar. From an offensive standpoint, from a guy that I just love to compete against, there's two guys I always talk about. One is Tracy Mcgrady. Tracy Mcgrady was one of those special talents. I always pride myself in being able to stop the person on defense and then go down and score on them on the offensive end. That was really one of the things that I, pride myself on, or was one of my mantras that I wanted to always present myself with, was Tracy Mcgrady, obviously because he was so tough to guard. And then Kobe was another guy. I was drafted to Philadelphia, but I was traded out to Golden State. And Golden State and LA, I mean, we probably played each other like 8 times a year, including, the preseason and the regular season. So we all know who Kobe is. We all know who Kobe was and the sort of competitor that he was. I got a chance like eight times out of the year to really face up against this guy. So he was one of the guys that was always on my comment list to have that challenge against Kobe.
Kobe is one of my favorite players. So I've heard stuff like that before. So it's good just to hear that again. Okay, let's say it's the playoffs. It's, game 7. You're either, home, if it's a home game, you're driving to the arena, or on the road, you're taking the bus, you're trying to get locked in and get focused. What music artist or what song are you listening to before the game?
It's probably Jay-Z. I'm a chill guy. I like guys that, have good wordplay that kind of match up with the entertainment space, but also like the sports space. And Jay-Z, especially one of those guys that kind of put those two together. So anytime that I was getting geared up, I can definitely remember, Jay-Z was one of those playlists that I had going.
That's a good answer. That's my favorite rapper right there. I ain't gonna lie, he was from St. Louis. I thought you might have said Nelly. But you might have
said Jay-Z, baby.
So what do you enjoy more, dunking on somebody or dropping somebody with a crossover and scoring?
I say dropping them with the crossover and scoring, or any sort of change of directions, change of pace, using that first step to my advantage. I caught a couple bodies, as they would say, in my day, but I was one of those guys that definitely used my first step. So that cross and that finish was it.
So who was some of your favorite teammates throughout your career? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like someone based off of how good they was, but it could be a favorite teammate based off of your chemistry, or a veteran that really was a leader to you.
I had some of my best teammates in Washington. I had some of my greatest experiences in Washington. Obviously went to Cleveland and made it to the finals and had some great teammates there. If I had to name some teammates, Gilbert Arenas, Jared Jeffries, Brendan Haywood. I mean, those are the guys that, my Washington guys that obviously that I still talk to today. But then I got AI, who we only played together for a year and a half, but we've been friends for almost 15, 20 years now. So he's definitely one of the greatest teammates that I had. And obviously Bron, when we talk about names and we talk about a young guy coming in with all of these expectations, and I think the media knows, or just the outside space knows, or may not know, of how much he really relied on like the veterans when he first came into the league, the conversations that he would have with us about just learning the game and just learning the space and learning how to communicate. So Bron is really up there on my list too, because he didn't come in like a guy that knew everything. He came in as a guy, who was a young guy that wanted to learn. So that made him a really good teammate because he was in it with everybody. So those are guys, playing 14 years, a lot of different teammates, but those are the guys that I really still talk to today.
The next question, a scenario, games on the line, it's crunch time, fourth quarter, we're in the playoffs. It's about 15 seconds left on the clock. Coach draws up a play for you. You're driving to the basket. Defense collapse on you. You don't want to take a bad shot. You could pass to anybody in the history of basketball that's ever played this game, and you want to rely on them to knock down the shot to win the game. Who would you want to pass the ball to?
Is that a three?
It could be a three, mid-range, whichever shot you want.
I'm going with Ray Allen.
Okay, that's a good answer.
I'm going to go with Ray Allen. Then you got my drop down. I got Reggie Miller. Then I got Steph Curry in there. But if I'm driving to the hole and I got a kick out, I think that, all those guys played well and shot the ball well that I just mentioned. Steph obviously off the bounce, Reggie coming off screens. But I think if we're talking about spotting up and I'm coming off pulling the defense in, I think Ray is going to be my spot up shooter that I need.
That's a good answer. All three of those guys you named are, some of the greatest shooters ever, and in their careers, knocks down clutch shots. So since you said that, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who do you think, in your opinion, is the greatest shooter ever?
I'm going to go with Steph right now. Obviously he's first in mind because he's currently playing right now and active. But the ease in which he shoots the ball from off the dribble or catch and shoot, his ability to have touch on all shots, driving, floaters, mid-range. Man, I haven't seen many people do what he's done.
What would Larry Hughes, at the age and where you're at right now in life, tell Larry Hughes in college as he's getting ready to get drafted and become an NBA player?
Man, I think it's work as hard as you can and keep the main thing the main thing. And I think when I say to keep the main thing, it's about really working on your craft day in and day out, having all your energy, kind of focused on your craft, but really keep the main thing the main thing. And if you have a great career, you go out, you do what you're supposed to do, and all those other things, that you had to be involved with, the things that you had to take time away from the sport to do, those will be just distractions. But keeping the main thing, and really work on your game. All
right. Let's say you're an NBA GM or your owner or whatever of a team. You have the first pick in the draft. And with the first pick, you can take any player in the history of the game. Who are you taking with the first pick?
Man, what game we playing? We playing today's game? I guess so, right?
History. Anyone, pick anybody.
I'm gonna say, you know what? We're playing, kind of that hybrid game. Today's game is obviously more space and pace, but you cannot pick one of these dominant guys that came before us. So a hybrid guy probably would be Wilt. I say Wilt would be my first pick. Reason being is a guy that can potentially play inside out, but definitely guard the basket, grab rebounds, and he's a really good passer. So Wilt would be my first pick.
All right, so Wilt's your first pick. Could you name your all-time starting five?
All-time starting five, I would have to say Wilt would be my 5. MJ would be my 2. Man, Brian would have to be my 3. KD would be my 4. And you know which point guard I'm going to take just because I love him? It's going to be Dame Lillard. I love everything he brings to the table, and in a different situation, not out in Portland, he probably would have, even more fire under his name. But yeah, that's one of the guys I love. So he's always on, one of my teams.
That's a great team. And like I said, much respect to Dame Lillard because he is a great player, not a good player, a great player. So that's a great lineup. Game on the line, you the coach. Who you drawing to play up to take the last shot?
KD got to get it. KD got to get the last shot. Whatever he want to pull up, he want mid-range, post up. But yeah, we putting the ball in KD's hands.
There's nothing wrong with that answer. The only thing is if you draw the play up from, tell him if he's taking the shot, you got to make sure his foot's behind the line and not his toes on the line when the game on the line.
Right on.
All right.
MJ, my decoy. MJ is the greatest decoy ever.
I got you. Okay, so who is your favorite NBA player growing up and someone in general you tried to, model your game after?
Well, my favorite NBA player growing up was Michael Jordan, and obviously being in St. Louis and having the Bulls right up the road. But I would say that I probably wanted to emulate Scottie Pippen a little bit more, just because I didn't dream as high as I probably should have dreamed. Making it to that MJ level was I thought would be tough. But you know what? Like a Scottie Pippen, being able to do, a lot of different things on the court, being that, that Robin to that Batman, I thought Scottie Pippen was a guy that, I would try to emulate and add things that he was doing into his game and try to perfect those things in my game as well.
And then here's, I think, a funny question, a 2-part question. Favorite celebrity you met?
Favorite celebrity I've met?
And while you're thinking about that, the second part of the question is a celebrity that you've never met that you would like to meet.
The celebrity I met is probably, I don't know if he's a celebrity, but I guess he is or was. It was Obama. Getting a chance to meet, the then President Obama was something special to me, obviously, because of where we come from and what we're trying to do, in this country, next level type stuff. So obviously he was the president, but all the things that surround him is definitely of that celebrity sort of status. And who would I like to meet? I would have loved to have met Michael Jackson just because of all of the weird stuff that went on, but the greatness that was there. I'm not necessarily a talker, but just to be in the presence of like a Michael Jackson, I think that would have been pretty cool.
That was a great answer. I always said Michael Jackson's the greatest music artist ever. You can't convince me nothing less. So, all right, last few questions. So NBA 2K just came out, NBA 2K22, and they tend to have players of the past. If you was the creator of NBA 2K22, what in his prime, what should Larry Hughes' rating be?
What's the highest?
99.
99. Yeah, 99. No doubt about it. 99. And that, I can say that because I don't even know how to play 2K. So yeah, I would have had to be a 99.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. You got confidence in yourself. Okay. What was some of your favorite shoes to play in when you were playing?
My favorite shoes, probably the Huarache, the 2K Huaraches that came out. I had a pair in Cleveland, which I had a custom pair in Cleveland, and then, well, actually, I had the first model came out when I was in DC, so I had that model in DC, and then they came out with another custom model when I was in Cleveland, which we had the wine and the blue, makeup or mock-up for that shoe, which was really cool. So it was a Huarache 2K something.
2K4, I remember. 2K4 and 2K5. Yeah, I had those as well. Great shoe to wear and definitely a comfortable shoe to play in. So that's an excellent choice. Okay, so do you still keep up with, the NBA to today? You still watch?
I do. Yep.
Who are some of the young talents that you enjoy watching?
Well, I love watching Jason Tatum. Obviously, that's family there. So anytime Boston is playing, I try to tune in. But there's also some good young talent on Boston team. I like Jaylen Brown as well. Anytime KD is playing with anybody, whether it be Brooklyn, Golden State, I like watching KD play. I like how he operates. I mentioned Dame Lillard earlier. So anytime I can get a chance to check him out and watch what he's doing, I like watching him. Main reason is because those guys pretty much give it like every time that they play. It's not obviously KD was out hurt for a while, but you don't get a situation where you're going to tune in and this guy may be out or, sitting out this game or, not really engaged. Anytime I watch Dame, he's engaged in the game. Anytime I watch KD, he's engaged. And obviously anytime I watch Lil J, he's engaged in the game. So those are the players that I like to, I like to watch because I don't watch every night, but when I do watch, I want to make sure that, I'm getting a good show.
You mentioned Jason Tatum, who you happen to be, if people don't know, you're the godfather of. How proud are you of Jason Tatum? Because he's come a long way from being, because I know I watched him when he was like in 10th grade and I saw the potential, but to go from a young kid to now an NBA All-Star.
I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud that his parents and the family has done with just, fostering a good environment for him to do and chase the dreams that he's chasing. He puts an awful lot of work into being the greatest player to play this game. And, these are things that we know internally that he's chasing to be the greatest player to play. So, those are his goals. And when you see, season after season, or even sometimes, even last year, obviously dealt with the COVID stuff, but each month he continued to get better and to add things to his game and to surprise the NBA of what he can do out there on the basketball court. So he is one of the guys that I obviously watch in the NBA, but ultra super proud of what he's done. And for him, obviously him keeping the main thing is you can always find Lil J working on his game or making sure he's taking care of his body. And I think that's going to go a long way for him. So I'm super proud of what he's doing. And he's just really getting started. I mean, he's just really scratching the surface of what he can do, or what's needed from him, from his team. And, just really super proud.
And that's great. Like I said, the same thing, man. Sky's the limit for him, and I really enjoy watching him play as well. And then last question I want to ask for you is, like I said, you're retired now, you have your basketball academy, but what is it like being an AAU dad? Because I know your kids play as well.
For me, it's fun. I mean, just understanding the experiences that he's going through, understanding what he's chasing. Again, he's a kid that wants to play at the highest level, and he puts the time in, he puts the effort in. And obviously growing up playing AAU ball and, there's going to be ups and downs. And like we talked about, there's adversity and there's challenges, every time you turn around. But I think for me, just watching his journey and watching his preparation to chase those goals, he's a 4.0 student, honor society student. So basketball scholarships and all the basketball stuff, all of that stuff is great. But he's doing it on and off the court. So I'm a proud dad. I sit back and watch him and see how he's moving and see what he's chasing. And I just try to help wherever I can. We have conversations or we talk about the game. It's a lot of mental things versus physical. It's about understanding what he's trying to accomplish, what he sees. And I think that's for me, that's the beauty of my experiences, is to be able to give him the knowledge without giving him the physical knowledge, right? If I can give him the mental space to go out and know that there's going to be challenges and things that he'll see, he can be that much better on the court. So as a dad, I'm just loving it. I play a few roles: dad, coach, trainer, scheduler, all of those good things. But it's been a really good journey so far.
Okay, so you're not that, like, if you're out there in the crowd in the game watching them, you're not that crazy dad, like giving the refs a hard time or yelling and stuff like that?
I'm not. And I cheer for them. I cheer for the team. I understand that, once they get out there, the team has a goal that should coincide with his individual goal, but the team has a goal. So I sit back and allow him to operate in his space. You won't see me jumping out of the stands, running on the court. You won't see me pulling him aside during the games, trying to tell him to do this or do that. I just sit back and the information that we share and just let him operate with it. And once we're done, then we can talk about what you did wrong or what you did right. But I'm a dad in the stands, and that's where I want to be.
That's great to hear, because, sometimes the AAU tournaments, parents can be rowdy, especially, as an NBA player, he wants the best for his son. But that's good to hear. It's great to hear. Well, that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank Mr. Hughes, Mr. Larry Hughes, for joining us for a Beyond Game podcast. Just great time speaking with you, great advice, and just best of luck and best wishes to you moving forward with your basketball academy. And again, thank you for spending time with us.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. You know, just jumping on and giving a couple words of obviously encouragement, but talk about experiences. I think that these type of things go a long way in growing up. You know, to see guys come back and to talk about their experiences, so I don't, you know, make those same mistakes, or I can identify what an experience is. You know, when I see it, I think that those are the things that, you know, former guys like myself and just guys that want to give back and support the young people, I think that that's our duty.
Appreciate your time and thank you for your advice.